are protected, what he's teaching people to do before police arrived. Well, and you could soon use your phone to diagnose a common issue in kids without waiting for a doctor. We're going to talk to the people making that possible.
Good evening. Usually you hear of blood donors saving other people's lives, but for one local man, being a regular donor ended up saving his life. The Now's Emma Lockhart joins us in studio with more on how the 76-year-old learned he needed a life-saving surgery following a screening while trying to donate blood.
Walter Owen has a lot to be thankful for, but things could have gone very differently if he wasn't a regular donor. And this week, he was reunited with the woman who he says saved his life.
People need it. I got plenty. So.
Walter Owen is a regular at Houchin Blood Bank. The 76-year-old donating blood every 8 weeks.
I just feel like it's a good thing to do.
But back in October, Walter's typical day at the Bolt House Donation Center went differently.
Donna screened me, and when she took my pulse, she said I was skipping too many beats, so she couldn't take my blood that day.
He came back, I believe, a couple of days later, still didn't meet the criteria.
That's when Walter called his doctor, who told him to go to urgent care. Following an EKG, Owen was sent to Heart Hospital. That's when he received the shocking news.
And they told me I needed a triple bypass. It was sort of a wow moment. Gee whiz, wasn't expecting that.
He received the surgery by the end of November. Now, 6 months later, Walter is healthy, in good spirits, and he has a special someone to thank for that.
If I wasn't a donor and if Donna hadn't caught that, then I would have ended up having a heart attack.
On Monday, Walter was reunited with Donna Ayers, who had no idea her screening had such an impact.
And it was a little bit emotional. It was very good to be able to see her again and thank her from the bottom of my bypassed heart.
I said, well, thank you very much. You made my day. And he said, well, thank you. You made my life. So that's shocking, you know, the realization that I helped in that way.
Now bonded, Walter and Donna have a newfound relationship.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Have you been golfing again?
I have.
With Walter showing no signs of stopping his blood donations.
I got to make my 16 gallons.
Just now with a new sense of gratitude.
She saved my life. It feels pretty good.
Donna says before anyone is able to donate blood, they get a screening that checks their vitals and iron levels. Another reason she encourages people to donate. For the Now Bakersfield, I'm Emma Lockhart.
Incredible story there, Emma. Thanks for that. Well, the debate over the safety of e-cigarettes and vaping continues to grow, and now the FDA is feeling legal pressure to come up with a way to regulate products already on the market. The use of e-cigarettes is skyrocketing among middle and high school students across the nation, and a number of health groups sued the FDA for putting that review on the back burner. Today, a federal judge in Maryland ruled that the delay violated the law, and he gave the health groups 2 weeks to propose how the FDA should fix the problem. The FDA says it's reviewing the ruling, but it will continue to tackle the e-cigarette epidemic among kids. Experts say vaping products could put children at risk because their brains are still developing and because they can get hooked on nicotine early and be a gateway to smoking and other drugs. A woman found a puppy covered in blood hiding underneath a car in East Bakersfield with gunshot wounds to the head. The woman contacting a local pet rescue for help, and now that rescue is calling the puppy a miracle and asking for help to find those responsible. The Now's Josh Sanders reports, but we do want to warn viewers that some of these pictures may be disturbing.
I've done rescue for 13 years, and I've never seen a dog rally like this ever.
Morgan Sokolow says this puppy is a miracle.
She looked under her car and her whole left side was covered in blood.
Late Wednesday night, Sokolow's friend heard what she thought were gunshots outside of her home. When she went outside, she saw a group of teens running away.
The dog was obviously in a lot of pain and needed medical care immediately.
The 10 to 12-month-old Jack Russell Terrier mix, now known as Oakley, was rushed to the emergency room, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the head, needing x-rays along with several other procedures to save her life.
Her eye had been shot through.
According to Sokolow, veterinarians determine Oakley will need to have her left eye removed.
Oh, that eye. That poor eye.
Taking to Facebook last night asking for the community's help.
And that was the Now's Josh Sanders reporting. Oakley's surgery is scheduled for May 24th. There's still little known about who's actually responsible for shooting Oakley. If you have any information, you are asked to call law enforcement. Well, every year, Bakersfield firefighters are able to send dozens of burn survivors to camp, a place where they can get away from their everyday lives. And this year, they're hoping to do the same, but they need your help. For a 10th year, the Bakersfield Firefighters Burn Foundation is hosting their Send a Kid to Camp luncheon at Outback on Stockdale Highway. It's tomorrow, May 17th from 11 to 2. With a $25 donation, you'll get your lunch and a blooming onion for the table to share. Proceeds from the event will send burn survivors ages 5 to 16 to a week-long camp. There, they will have the opportunity to participate in games and activities, as well as connect with other survivors. Details on how to make a reservation can be found online at turnto23.com. Reading Cinemas at Valley Plaza would like to invite the community to join their birthday celebration and celebrate 20 years of movie magic. The celebration started Wednesday and will be running through Sunday. The movie theater is doing advanced showings today of movies that are set to be released tomorrow, and those who go can get a free small popcorn. The theater will also have $1 hot dogs, $4 family popcorn tubs with unlimited same-day refills, and a free Nestle candy with family popcorn tub purchase. That runs every day through Sunday. Reading Cinemas is located at 2000 Weibel Road.
Getting a parking ticket is never fun. Now, what if you find out that this wasn't from a traffic cop? Well, Corey Rangel is looking at an idea to let regular people hand out parking tickets.
The dreaded parking ticket. You see them handed out all the time across the country. But DC residents could start getting tickets from their neighbors, not just traffic cops or meter maids.
We don't have enough enforcement officers.
Councilman Charles Allen came up with the idea. About 80 people around the district would be trained and then certified to issue parking tickets. They would then use a mobile app to take a picture of the violation, and the ticket would be sent in the mail.
When someone is creating an immediate safety hazard, there needs to be a consequence. And so having the ability to have more, essentially, enforcement take place, all those little violations that are happening all the time that impact our safety, that make our streets less safe, to be able to have enforcement get magnified is part of having safer streets.
Residents aren't so sure about the idea.
Someone's getting upset that a citizen is giving out tickets, it could become violent.
Of course, I agree with anyone being safe, walking our streets and riding our bikes.
If they have an axe to grind against their neighbor, then they would be taking it out on their neighbor, writing them a ticket if they're not doing what they need them to do.
If passed, the plan would go through a trial period to see if it works out. The idea is part of a larger bill to make streets safer after a series of deadly crashes involving pedestrians and cyclists. The proposal also includes lowering speed limits, new sidewalks and bike lanes, as well as better crosswalk markings.
It's time for us to take safety more seriously. We lost over 30 people last year. We're over 10 people this year already on our streets in D.C.
A vote on the bill is not expected until later this year. In Washington, D.C., I'm Corey Rangel reporting.
All right, Corey, thank you. Let's get back to our lineup. And after a number of attacks on religious people, one rabbi has had enough.
We're not sheep. We're not victims. We're not going to just be just taking this kind of abuse. If we need to defend our communities and our family, we will absolutely do so.
How he's teaching people to respond before police arrive. We've seen a number of attacks on places of worship recently, but now one rabbi is on a mission to change that, and as Chris Welch shows us, his methods are a little unconventional.
The only time we're drawing out fast, but we're still taking our time because that first shot, it matters.
Raziel Cohen is 22 years old.
You're going to bring your fingers up and you want your fingers to wrap around properly.
But don't let his age fool you. He's had years of training, not just with firearms, but in the teachings of the Jewish faith.
I was born and raised religious, went to religious schools and everything.
He's now an ordained rabbi. And if you think religious leader and expert marksman don't necessarily go hand in hand, Cohen says, think again.
Just because I'm a person that's a faith leader and trying to make the world a better place doesn't mean that I'm going to be falling a victim. We're not sheep. We're not victims. We're not going to just be just taking this kind of abuse. If we need to defend our communities and our family, we will absolutely do so.
He's been called the tactical rabbi, and he specializes in teaching clients how to respond to active shooters before police can get there. And his methods are just a little unconventional.
You were aggressive.
Yes. So again, I'm training these people for the worst case scenario, which means people are not going to just be standing there walking out like it's a fire alarm. They're going to be running in panic and there's going to be a lot of chaos, which makes sense because it's a danger. So I'm pushing him because if he's drawing a firearm, again, I want him to be very proficient in what he's doing. So if I shove him as if someone ran into him during an active shooting, he has to be able to control the gun properly and make sure that he didn't fire at someone that wasn't supposed to be shot at.
The New Zealand mosques, the Pittsburgh synagogue, the Sri Lankan churches, and recently the synagogue shooting in Poway, California, all places of worship targeted this past year.
Because obviously having something like this in a place of worship is going to freak a lot of people out.
So again, I did cover this with a lot of other people, that we discussed that even though we have these style of firearms, we are in a house of worship, which means we are speaking to God and trying to make it it's still a sacred place. So there is a certain level of respect that has to be done there.
He stresses that these types of guns would be locked up and only those who are extensively trained would ever handle any weapons. Now, he admits his tactics don't always sit well with everyone, but he says this is the reality of 2019.
We don't want this to be what's going on in the world today, but it is. It's the same reason why we would have a fire extinguisher in our house, not because we're expecting there to be a fire, but if there's a fire, we will be prepared.
Reporting in Sylmar, California, I'm Chris Welch.
Well, Chris, thank you. Well, some of the best minds in public health are together today tackling a topic that impacts so many people. U.S. News and Texas Children's Hospital are hosting the first Childhood Obesity Summit. Now, they brought together doctors, researchers, leaders of various health programs to talk about what's working and what's not when it comes to tackling this issue. The truth is, about 1 in 5 kids in the U.S. has a weight problem. U.S. News' chief content officer says getting together with all these experts is key to solving such a complicated issue.
It's not just people eating the wrong foods. It's people who have biological challenges. It has a lot to do with poverty and income, people who don't have good food choices. How do we fix that? It has to do with education, people who don't understand, women who are pregnant and don't eat properly are setting their babies up for a lifetime of weight problems.
Now, after the summit, U.S. News does plan to highlight success in tackling childhood obesity. Well, a shift in home prices that you should know about if you are considering selling or buying over the summer. For the first time since 2012, the average value of a house has dropped from month to month. That's according to Zillow. Now, it's not by much, but it is worth watching. The average home in the U.S. is worth almost $227,000. Home values have only dropped twice over the past few decades, and that was during the recession of the early 90s and the housing crisis in the late 2000s.
The boats are revving up their engines for the May Madness races out at Lake Ming this weekend. This is the third race of the National Jet Boat Association season, and it all kicks off this Saturday at 8 a.m. and goes until Sunday. The cost is $10 for adults, and kids 12 and under get in for free. All right, let's take a live look at downtown Bakersfield. We can hear the rain coming down and we can see it on the camera, Allison.
Oh, very exciting. This winter storm that we were tracking beginning yesterday, bringing some of those isolated showers as we head into the overnight hours. That's what we are seeing right now here in Bakersfield. So one of those storm cells is making its way over the region, and you could be seeing it for at least the next 30 minutes. And then most likely that is going to be clearing and pushing off over toward the mountains. But so far here in Bakersfield, we have received 600s of an inch of rain, and it looks like more is on the way from that cell that is hanging out over our heads right now. Something else that we need to be tracking with this storm is actually those strong winds. Look at this, 21-mile-per-hour gust in Bakersfield right now. That's all due to that isolated thunderstorm that is over the region, but looking at strong winds in our desert cities, 41-mile-per-hour winds in Jawbone Canyon. That does bring up a high wind warning in our mountain and desert cities. Gusts could be reaching up to 65 miles per hour. That is in effect until 7 in the morning tomorrow. So thankfully, another day of good air quality tomorrow with an AQI of 38. Those isolated thunderstorms continuing through around 9 p.m. this evening. Then most of that centered around our mountain communities. They actually could be seeing the chance for some snow showers, which we already saw earlier today in areas like Tehachapi. So temperature is going to be still in those 60s on Friday, but you can expect the 70s for the rest of the weekend. Chris?
Let's start the news feed, and there's new research pointing to diet as a possible way to cut down on a woman's risk of dying from breast cancer. For the first time, research says that trimming dietary fat and eating more fruits and vegetables can make an impact. Now, this study looked at 49,000 women over 2 decades. The FDA is recalling multiple kinds of tattoo ink. They say there are 6 inks that are contaminated with bacteria, and they could lead to serious injuries and infections. Well, cities are looking to tax digital streaming services. Bloomberg says Chicago is now the first city to successfully tax providers like Spotify, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. The city brought in around $2 million doing that. More people visit amusement parks each year than art galleries and museums. That's according to educational website Learner. Annie Taylor, though, showing us an amusement park ride that's focused on bridging the gap between art and thrill.
When you think of amusement parks, you think of roller coasters, you think of funnel cakes, and you definitely think of games, but you don't necessarily think about art. Now, there is one amusement park who's changing the way we experience dark rides.
It is very visually dense. There's lots of colors and shapes and lights and all kinds of things going on.
This is Kaleidoscape.
So the beginning of the wallpaper, they start as flat.
Taking riders along the birth of a new world.
And then they become more and more 3D.
Less based on the thrill of the ride, and it's more of the narrative, sculpture, and content in the ride.
Elitch Gardens Amusement Park in Denver is partnering with Meow Wolf, an immersive, interactive art installation located in Santa Fe.
I love Meow Wolf because I have no idea what is going to happen around the corner.
Meow Wolf's co-founder Matt King says audiences can immerse themselves into fantastic realms of story and exploration. Kaleidoscape is the first art-focused ride.
Elitch Gardens is obviously a non-traditional art space, and it's just such a fun place to work because the rules of a gallery or museum don't necessarily apply here.
Meow Wolf's team in Santa Fe reached out to local artists in Denver.
Many of the Meow Wolf team on this side,
like Frankie Tone, to help in the design. The ride is broken up into different phases of creation.
Continues into this overloaded, just amazingly vibrant world where there's landscapes and the landscapes turn into creatures and the creatures turn into beings.
The free-spirited, colorful, thought-provoking art of Meow Wolf is changing the way people see art.
They get people who maybe don't normally go to see art, especially in a gallery or museum setting. They get to experience really contemporary, really lively art in a non-traditional space.
Welcome back, riders. I'm Annie Taylor reporting.
Annie, thank you. And getting back to our lineup, soon you could be able to diagnose a common issue in children from home without waiting on a doctor. That's next here in the Now. There are a few things worse than a sick child, and half the battle is just figuring out what's wrong. But Kamasi Aaron has a new tool that could cut down on the guesswork.
Between a parent and a child, there is usually a smartphone nearby. Now there's a way to use it to diagnose a common issue in kids. Researchers at the University of Washington created an app that can detect if a child might have an ear infection. Basically, all you need is the phone, scissors, paper, and tape. You cut a funnel, tape it around the phone's microphone and speakers, and then hold the funnel near the child's ear. One of the app's researchers explained to us how it works.
Just put it here. So if you hear those small chirps, that's kind of what goes into the ear. And then based on the reflections from the eardrum, we can actually tell there's fluid in the ear.
Fluid buildup is a common cause of ear infections, and for parents of young kids like 22-month-old Jimmy, the app could be a lifesaver. He's had quite a few ear infections this year. Mom says it's been pretty difficult figuring out what's wrong with him because he doesn't run a fever, he doesn't tug at his ears, he just gets really cranky. And the worst part is knowing he's been uncomfortable for a few days before they figure it out.
If you think about it, when a kid is not happy, you're taking their temperature, you're making sure the diapers are clean, you're making sure they're fed, and to be able to take a peek in their ear and make sure they don't have an ear infection would be wonderful. At least you're saving days of figuring out that that's the issue.
The creators of the ear infection app hope to get FDA clearance by the end of the year.
All right, Kamasi, thank you. And we've heard stories of people making money off childhood toys, and you may be holding on to things just like this in your basement or your garage, thinking that they might be worth more money later. But tomorrow we're going to show you how you can find out if saving that stuff's actually going to pay off.
And coming up after the break, we're continuing to track this storm. You can see the raindrops on our camera. A closer look when we return.
We've been tracking some thunderstorms rolling across the valley, and we even heard rain on top of our 23 ABC studios, and you can expect that throughout the evening hours tonight, but then that is going to be clearing out. Actually, the chance to see some snow in the mountains by early morning tomorrow, but still holding on to those cool temperatures. 69 degrees is our high in Bakersfield.
Crazy. And we're in May. All right, that's going to do it for us on The Now. We'll see you tonight on 23 ABC News at 11.